All right, Cynthia, we are recording now, so thank you for your time. I'll give a little intro for all of those who are watching. My name is Scott Lawrence. I'm the pastor of the Green Hills Fairmount Charge, and you are obviously Cynthia Deter, pastor over the New Hope Charge. And in July, our bishop has approved a unique appointment in which we will be partnering together in the Green Hills Charge. So I will be dropping down to halftime in order to watch my son during the day, and then you will be joining the team halftime in our charge while remaining in the New Hope Charge as well. My wife was joking, how many churches is Cynthia going to have now? I'm like 20? I don't know. No, I think 6. Yeah. 6 to 7 is yeah. Where we're going from. Yeah. So this is just an opportunity for our charges to kind of get to know one another. So the first question I was going to ask you was if you could tell us just in a few minutes a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Scott. I was born here in Greene County, lived in Greene County all of my life. I actually grew up in a little area not far from Waynesburg called Eastview. My mom still lives there today. She's 86 years old. She still plays at the little Methodist church that I grew up in,
oh, really?
Throckmorton in Eastview. Yeah, she loves doing that. And you know, Throckmorton plays such an integral part of the foundation for my call. And my husband and I were married there. My mom and dad were married there. My grandparents attended church there. Our children were baptized there.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We were very active in the church. Our one son was married there. So we have deep roots there. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when God began to call me when I was at Throckmorton, and it was hard to leave because those roots were so deep.
Sure.
And actually, I don't want to share my whole call today, but I will say this: I refused to embrace that call for 3 years, telling God, number one, I was too old. I was 48 when I first heard God calling me to ministry. Fought that for 3 years. Ended up figuring out that God was very persistent in his plans for our lives. And so when I was 51, I began the inquiry process. I was appointed to Jollytown as an interim pastor, and I've served with Jollytown since then, since 2008. My husband and I have lived in Rogersville for 32 years. I love being part of this community. I love that, you know, we can sit out on our porch and people walk by and they wave, and people stop in the front when you're outside and talk from their vehicles. And, you know, I just love this whole sense of community that we find here. I was appointed, we added, the bishop at the time added Rogersville to the Jollytown Charge in 2013. And that was unexpected, but it's been wonderful. I love being in ministry with many of our neighbors, with our friends that we had established before, you know, this ever happened. And it's really been an amazing thing, Scott, and how God has worked and changed things. And so that's a little bit about, you know, I think people are going to learn about me, and you can go on the conference website and read my bio, but I wanted people to know a little bit more intimate details about who I am.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I didn't know that about your mom. We're always looking for your piano players. Your 86-year-old mother is going to be getting a phone call from me.
Yeah. Well, she's to help out. We were between piano players and played for me there, and then went to Throckmorton to her own church and played.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna add her on to the rotation. for us. Yeah, no, that's interesting. For a little bit of context for people, so I'm 32, so you have lived in
Yeah.
Rogersville just about the entirety of my lifespan. And for a little bit of details for anyone from your charge watching, so I've been pastoring for 9 years now, almost 10. I went to seminary 1 year out of college. I took kind of a year in between to kind of figure things out, figure the call out. Maybe similar to you, maybe a little bit shorter time span than you. But then I went to seminary, and I was a student pastor during that time. And then after I graduated, I was appointed by the bishop at the time to the Green Hills Fairmount charge, which is Union Valley, Nineveh, and Fairmount, which is very different than I grew up in. The region is so rural. I mean, I grew up in a small town, but I mean, as you know, living here so long, I mean, this is rural.
Yeah, it is rural.
I'm learning things all the time, you know, about the wonderful people down here in Washington and Greene County. And so part of the appointment is you might actually hear him if you wait. He's taking a nap right now, Tyler, my 9-month-old son, and my wife Christy. They might be coming down at some point. But yeah, I've just have been so blessed to be pastoring in this area. I feel that the kind of quirkiness of the people and the churches just fit my nature amazingly. And I've grown a real passion for seeing this community transform, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit about the moving mountains. So if you were to list like your top pastoral passion, so what's the one thing that really energizes you when those hard days of pastoring come, the one thing that you're like, oh, but I love doing this. What's your top pastoral passion, would you say, your top one or two?
You know, Scott, one thing that I recently have just really noticed is that sometimes our folks seem to come away with scripture, and it comes across as they feel more like it was a history lesson than actually living, breathing word. And so my thing that I'm passionate about in my ministry right now is making, how can I make this scripture reading, especially the Gospels, how can I make that relevant to each person here so that they can use it in their life, and not just think inside the box. And I was thinking this morning actually about the woman at the Samaritan woman at the well. You know, and when we hear that story, we need to put ourselves in that situation. We need to be Jesus. And maybe we don't have Samaritans here and you know, a woman who's going to the well to get, but we have those who are living on the margins. We have those who are living on the fringes of society, you know. And the first group that popped into my mind were, you know, we all know we live in an area where drug usage is very prevalent. And so for us, those people who are using drugs, they might be that Samaritan woman that needs to have this encounter with Jesus. And we need to be Jesus for those people that need to experience unconditional love and know that there is someone out there who love them no matter what. Yeah. And so my passion right now is to get people to see that Jesus has no arms and legs. He has no eyes, no mouth, except for ours here on earth right now. And so we have to be Jesus for people who need to see Jesus. Yeah. And in order for we need to internalize that. If we want to become, that's part of becoming a faithful disciple, you know, to go out and to live what Jesus teaches us to live. Yeah. So that's one of my passions right now.
I can tell. Yeah. We're ready to get the pulpit out.
Yeah, and start, I know. I was ready to preach to you, Scott.
Start going to town here. I mean, I was ready to take up the offering for everyone. No, and I think that's why our partnership is such a good fit, because, you know, what we've been talking about over at the Green Hills Fairmount Charge for about 8 months or so now is this thing we call Moving Mountains,
Mm-hmm.
which is all about really seeing incredible transformation happen right in our backyards. Now, the three churches I'm in, we have two that are in the West Green School District, and we have one that's in the McGuffey School District. So we think about this in terms of, how can we seriously move some mountains, like some massive issues
Yeah.
in our own communities in these very rural areas, so that we can really see our community thrive. And you mentioned addiction. I mean, poverty is a huge
Yeah.
issue. Rural poverty, which is different than urban poverty. There's tons of mental health issues. Our youth are desperately in need of some serious investment in a number of situations. I mean, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
So what we've been talking about is, how do we really see, you might use the word revival, right? Revival
Yes.
in our West Green and McGuffey communities. And I think that you're the perfect person to partner with us, because you have a similar heart and you've already been doing incredible things over at the New Hope Charge. I sent you some questions. I'm gonna jump down to one because I think it ties in nicely to what we're talking about. If you had one prayer for our 6 churches or our community, what would it be, right? Like if you had one prayer that you're praying and praying and praying again and again for, you could think about it in terms of the churches or just the community in general. What would it be?
So, and you know what? I'm kind of glad you took that out of order, because my prayer has been, since I've known that we were going to become, kind of in a collaboration here, that we will be able to move those mountains, that there will be disciples that will be raised up that have the same passion, the same vision, and I understand, not just for West Green, but also for McGuffey School District, and that we truly will be able to move those mountains, Scott. And that would be my prayer, that we will be able to fulfill the vision that God has given you for these 2 charges together, and for you and myself.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about during our pandemic right now, which we're locked down and restricted in all sorts of ways. One of the blessings of this time has been, for me, thinking about our partnership. I've just been thinking like in bigger and bigger terms. If you're gonna move a mountain, like you need more than just 6 churches, which is what we're bringing to the table. You need all the churches, you need all the community organizations, you need the school districts, you need everybody on board. So this lockdown has kind of forced me to think bigger. What if we got more people involved, more people praying, more people fasting, more people seeking to really participate in wherever it is God is leading us. And so our partnership, in my mind, is just kind of the beginning stages of expanding what God has already started and will continue to do. Did you have any specific, you mentioned you wanted me to flesh out some Moving Mountains talk for you. Did you have any questions you wanted me to flesh out while we're on the topic?
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Scott. And I wanted, especially the folks at my 2 churches, to be able to understand a little bit better kind of the vision. And I'm not exactly sure where your churches are, how in depth they have been involved in this. But so could you give us, for example, if we're talking about making a difference in children's lives, do you have some things that you have formed in your mind, or are we still talking pretty generally?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the kind of the bigger picture. So I'll start by saying this. There's a book that's, we actually started this as a book study, then the lockdown happened, so we never finished it. But there's a book called When Helping Hurts, and one of the principles of that book is distinguishing between what the book will call relief work and development work. And so relief work is basically meeting immediate needs. So right now we have a lot of immediate needs. Somebody loses their job, they don't have any income. That's an immediate need, right? They might need help with groceries or help getting access to our food bank, right? Like that's an immediate relief need. Another classic example, right? Like a flood comes through, and just devastates an area. Like you have a lot of relief needs. They need shelter, they need clean water. They need access to healthcare, all that immediate needs. So that's relief work. Development work is more thinking in broader terms. So for instance, instead of just getting somebody a meal for right now, it's thinking, well, how can we help you get back on your feet? So it's more thinking in terms of getting people out of cycles as opposed to just meeting immediate needs. So when I talk about moving mountains, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about setting up some kind of ministry initiative that will help people get out of the cycles that they have found themselves trapped in, whether that be cycles of addiction or poverty, or you fill in the blank. How do they actually get out of those cycles? Because a lot of the times, and this is no knock to the church in general, but a lot of the times we as churches do relief work, which is very important, like getting people food, paying bills when somebody finds themselves in a dire situation, like very important. But what we're talking about is actually helping people out of those cycles so that they can live the life that God created them to live. We're not there to fix their problems. We're there to connect them to God and God's vision for their life in such a powerful way that they live into that through their own gifts, strengths, and talents. So that's kind of the bigger picture when we talk about moving mountains. How can we see radical transformation in people's personal lives and in our communities? So what we started doing was we started a big discernment process, which kind of got put on pause with everything. And whenever we start restarting things, I'm going to extend the invitation to your churches, and we'll work together on how this will play out. But basically, we were in a discernment process of like, where or what does God want us to do? We didn't want to rush into anything and then realize like too late, like, we're trying to solve a problem that really doesn't exist, or like, this organization already knocks it out of the park doing that. Why are we reinventing the wheel?
Mm-hmm.
So what we were doing was a discernment process in which we were starting to ask people in our community, what do you see the needs are? We were asking people in our school districts, what do you see the needs are? Community organizers, leaders, what do you see? So we were just starting to do some research and some prayer work over like, what is it God is seeking to do? So that's kind of where we were, was mapping out some of the organizations, assets, activities that are already happening in our community. And then we were going out to interview those people who were leading those things to get a sense of what people were feeling was kind of the deeper level issues in our community. That got hit pause, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to restart that. But ultimately, bigger picture, like one of the things I would like to do is create some kind of a hub of healing. I don't know where that would be, whether it would be in an actual church facility, if it would be in another facility, but to create a place or a space where somebody could come to find not only the resources, but the community of people who will help them achieve whatever it is they feel God is seeking to do in their life. Because one of the things that we've learned is that the biggest resource in transformation isn't always money, which is what we think it is, right? Well, if I just give enough money, it's actually people and relationships, which is why we need to think so much bigger. It takes a lot of people to surround someone in this transformation process. So like, as an example, you mentioned youth, right? Like, I've heard it said that every youth should have at least 5 adults pouring into their life, whether that's a coach, a Sunday school teacher, parent, whoever. So like, that's an example. Like when people want to see real change, often it's the relationships that are above all the most valuable resource. And so that's what I would ultimately like to see happen, a place where a person could find not only the resources, but the actual community of people to kind of see them forward in whatever that is. So that's like the kind of like where we were and then where we're heading kind of thing.
Okay.
Like I said, now I just see it expanding. So we got to get more people praying,
Yeah.
more people out interviewing, more people collecting, information, what's happening. But that's kind of the bigger picture of where we're heading. We wanted to really emphasize the discernment process so that we didn't get too deep and realize, oh no, we've committed to this thing and it's really not where God was leading us. It's not where we should have been going. So that's what we were doing before we had to hit pause.
Well, thank you, Scott, because, I only had a little bit of your vision, and I think it's important that I wanted to hear an expanded version of that, and I think that will help the folks at our 3 churches to really come to a better understanding of of what the vision is, at least at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep the word that I keep thinking about really is revival. And in the traditional sense, revival would be like a big tent meeting and an altar call, but I see it more holistic,
Hmm.
revival of our community,
Yeah.
not only people personally, entering into that relationship with God through Jesus, but like actual change in the fabric of our society. Like that's how I think about revival, like a more holistic, corporate experience of God.
Someone said one time, and I think it might be our current DS, Brad Lauster
Oh,
said, if you're going to dream for God, dream big.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
because we
like it.
serve a big God. Yeah. So let's dream big.
Yeah, well, I'm ready to get
Yeah.
my pulpit out now and just
Yeah.
start preaching and
Yeah.
going to town. But we
I
won't do
feel
that. We won't do that yet. There's plenty more time. Plenty more time for that. One of the questions that I did want to ask you, we'll kind of jump a little bit. We'll get into some more of your personal details, like just things you like to do and things like that. But I did want to ask you, do you have a favorite Bible verse or a passage that has really either been influential to you or been one that you come back to again and again and again as you move
Yeah.
through this journey of life?
I do. I have one that kind of serves in both capacities, Scott, and it's from Isaiah. Behold, I do a new thing. Do you
Mm,
not see it? Do you not perceive it? The old
mhm.
has passed away, and sometimes I take that to heart so much that my husband has to like kind of throw the rope around my legs and pull me down and say, "Listen, I know you like new and you like different, and you're ready to embrace it, but not everybody likes new and different, and not
Yeah.
everyone is ready to embrace new and different all the time." But that goes back to that, what Brad said. I think if I'm going to dream big, if I'm going to dream for God, I'm going to dream big.
Yeah.
And I love new and I love different. I think
Uh-huh.
God's doing new things in our lives every day. So let's embrace it and let the church realize that God's doing new in our lives every day.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's my constant. That's the one that I fall back on. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that one. That's not one I hear people share a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. I agree. Yeah, for me, when I think about favorite scripture verses, probably my favorite, the one that I turn to most, is in 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul is talking about the thorn in his side, and he asks
Mm,
God 3 times, to remove the thorn,
yeah.
and basically God didn't. But what God did do was say, "My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness." And the whole section, I actually like the whole section, but that's the key verse. But the whole section is really powerful to me. Just how a lot of the times when I feel, like what do I have to offer? I have nothing but flaws. It seems some days, and yet what God says is, no, that's exactly what I want. I want your weakness because it is in your weakness that my strength, my power, my presence will be made manifest. And then the section will talk about, so Paul then says he welcomes insults, he welcomes
Yeah.
weaknesses, right? He welcomes the shortcomings, the failures, because then it will be God who will receive the glory. So that whole passage is powerful to me. Number one, that Paul wanted something and didn't get it, right? And then number two, that God said, like, it's actually good that you're not getting what you want, because it will strengthen your relationship with me. It will strengthen who you are, and more people will see the power of God. So yeah,
Oh,
2 Corinthians 12 is a kind of a key chunk of passages for me. I wanted to ask you a couple of personal questions, just kind of things about who you are in general, just because I think that's
okay.
interesting. My wife Christy helped me come up with this. So here's number one. How did you meet your husband Butch? She wanted me to ask that. She's very curious.
Okay. Well, so I had five brothers. I'm the only girl in my family of siblings, and
Oh,
I was the oldest, and I am
mhm.
the oldest. I have five younger brothers. Unfortunately, I have a brother that passed away a couple years ago. But my youngest brother, and you may know him, Dan Grimes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dan's my brother. I don't tell that often. I'm just kidding. um, but he had a baseball coach, which was my husband that I didn't know at the time. And when Dan got older, he began to help my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, to coach Little League Baseball. And one day, for some odd reason, he needed a ride to a baseball game. And so he asked me if I would take him, and I said I would take him and I would wait for him, and then I would take him home. And the the park was in Waynesburg. It's the Meadowlark Park by McDonald's, where you turn left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was standing by the fence waiting for the game to be over. And Butch later told me, he said, I looked over, he said, I didn't know who you were. He said, but I said to myself, someday I'm going to marry that girl.
Oh, Butch, I like it.
Oh, yeah. Year and a half later, he did.
Really?
So
Oh,
that's,
wow.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
that's how
interesting.
it happened.
Yeah, I actually I have a somewhat similar story with Christy. I won't go into the we'll be here all another 2 hours or so all morning. But yeah, I asked her out without having known her at all. We were at college. It was our freshman year in the spring semester, just the start of it. And I saw her. I was with a friend, and I basically said to him, somewhat similar. I said, I'm gonna date that girl." And I'd never spoken to her. I didn't know her at all. And so then through a very long series of events, we ended up dating it. And
Oh
then
my gosh.
several years later, we ended up married. And so, yeah, I did not know her though. So I like to think there was some like divine providence in that.
I
You know what I
I
mean? Like
think so. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some God in that. Like, yeah, never
Yep.
spoken to her, never knew her, and yet she ended up being the
Wow.
perfect person for me. Yeah. So, do you have what are your favorite hobbies? What do you like to do for fun that's not church related?
Um, so number one, family.
Oh yeah.
We love doing things with our family, going places together. Um, I enjoy reading.
Hmm.
Um, I like who done it kind of
Hmm.
things. I like Dean Koontz used to be and still is one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Um, I love playing the piano. Um, uh, well, part of what I'm doing right now in this season is I like we like being outdoors. I'm planting flowers.
Hmm.
So I like to and do that. I like to do that. Um, so those are like music. I love music, Scott. I love all kinds of music. I have very eclectic taste in music. Um, I use it a lot actually in my messages on Sunday morning.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Um, so I just if you come to the house and I'm the only one home, you probably won't find the TV on. You'll find music playing.
Huh.
Played in my
Yeah.
car. Just I love music. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
that's one of those
that's
things.
interesting. We're a good partnership. Zero musical abilities and or talents and or gifts, so we're a good fit then. um, yeah. So my own hobbies. So you mentioned family. So obviously playing with my little son. He is my main
Yeah,
hobby. Keeping him
I'm sure.
alive. Uh, hobby number one. Um, but for fun, I like to run, which I just started in the past month. I haven't. Once he was born, I had to take a little pause, but I just started running again. I did run. I ran last Pittsburgh half marathon, and so I did that, which was a lot of fun. I don't know. Someday I'd like to attempt a marathon. I don't know if I have it. Like that's kind of a vision kind of thing. So I like to run. I also like to hike and
Oh,
backpack.
okay.
Again, I used to be able to do that a little bit more when Tyler wasn't born, so figuring out how to fit that in. But yeah, I like to do backpacking. At some point, I would like to hike a section of the Appalachian Trail, which is a massive through hike from Georgia to Maine. I wouldn't do the whole thing, but
Yeah.
that's like another one of my big goals is to hike a little bit of that. So that's what I got time for right now. My a little bit of running and the occasional hike. And so the last question that I have, and then if you have anything else, you can throw it out there, but describe your perfect vacation. These were all from my wife. Notice my questions were all like, what's your favorite Bible verse? How are we going to move mountains? My wife's like, what do you do for fun? Tell us about who you really are. So describe your perfect vacation.
Oh gosh. So I oh gosh. I think I would have to say like I have this visualization of the beach, and
Mm.
I'm not one to, to go down and sunbathe all day.
Mhm.
But what I find relaxing is like sitting on the balcony,
Mhm.
reading a book,
Mhm.
and just listening to the people, listening to the waves. That's just
Mhm.
that calming sound of all that. And so for me, that would be my perfect vacation.
Oh, that's awesome. I won't duplicate it, but that would be one of my two. The ocean, so peaceful and
Yes.
like
Yeah.
almost like tranquilize, like
Yes.
hypnotic, like the waves
Mm-hmm.
in and
Yeah.
out, and the noises. No, the
Yep.
beach is one of my favorite places. So I'll make a different one up. That would be one of my top ones. If I had to pick another one though, my wife and I have a goal of going to all 50 states. I don't know where we're at now, but like two, or was it last summer? 2 summers ago, we took a big road trip out to the Mount Rushmore and the Badlands, and
Uh-huh.
camped out there for a little bit. And so that was just a lot of fun. That's like a weird vacation because it's also kind of work because you're like driving constantly, having to find food, doing some other things. So, but that was such a good trip. And if I had to pick a place where I could go, the Grand Canyon is number one on my go-to list of where I would like to
Yeah.
travel to. So maybe at some point we'll get a little road trip down to the Southwest. That would be my ideal vacation behind the beach for me. So that's all the questions I had. Did you have any others that you want? There are a couple more, but I feel this is a good place unless you have something else you wanted to ask or bring up.
No. Well, I when you were talking, I was wondering about Tyler, and
Mm-hmm.
I think so. He's 9 months old, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let me. This
Oh.
is an old photo. Here we go. This is an old photo.
Oh my gosh, he's so
Oh,
cute.
I know he is. He's the
Oh,
cute.
oh my gosh. Oh geez.
Yeah, he's months old though. Yep.
So when you're so it sounds as though you and your wife enjoy the hiking and the being outdoors and
Mm-hmm.
everything. How long do you think, at what age do you think you're going to introduce him to maybe doing some camping and,
Yeah. Oh,
throwing in the backpack and
good question. We have tried. I do have like a backpack that he sits in the back of. So we actually tried. He did not like it.
oh, okay.
Tried a lot. So we're putting a pause on that. I think over the summer we're going to try to do an overnight with him in a tent, probably
Okay.
maybe my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, maybe their yard initially. If he does okay there, maybe try like an actual camp for a night.
Hmm.
So this summer we'd like to do like not hiking, just kind of like getting him used to maybe a tent and being outside like that. So yeah, that's on our radar. We did try though, kind of failed a little bit. he wasn't
Oh,
he wasn't ready.
yeah.
Say though, for your folks. So my wife is a teacher, a third grade teacher up at Peters Township.
Okay.
So she's heading back in mid-August or so, whatever school looks like. They're still debating that.
Yeah.
So she's heading back to work after taking a year off. So that's part of the reason for the appointment transition. So I'm going to be the one watching Ty during the day, and then leading my charge halftime on Sundays and a couple days a week as well.
Hmm.
So yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that's a good question about the camping. Yeah,
Okay.
I got the backpack ready.
All right. All
I just
right.
need, just need him to get used to it, I guess. So
Uh,
that's good.
it
That's good. Well,
sounds enjoyable.
oh, I can't wait. Well, Cynthia, this has been fantastic. I think this is exactly what I hoped for. We got to hear a little bit from each of us and get to know each other a little bit better, and hopefully our charges will kind of get to know us a little bit through this video prior to July. So I just want to thank you for your time, and my invitation to your churches who are watching and my churches is to keep us both in prayer and keep this partnership in prayer. There'll be a lot more info, I'm sure, once we hit July about how things will shake out, what it'll look like, and how we can start moving some mountains together. So once we hit July, I'm sure there'll be some more info. But for right now, I would appreciate your church's prayers, and I'm sure you would appreciate my church's
Yes.
prayers as
Yes.
we enter into this partnership with two pastors, myself and you in my charge, and you over in your charge. I think undergirding it in prayer would just be an amazing way to
Yes.
start it off.
Yes. Yes. And I would appreciate the prayers as much as I know you'll appreciate the prayers. And I'm just going to say on my part to close, you know what, Scott, let's dream big.
Oh, that's good. That's a
Yeah.
good place. So I'll hit pause right here, and I think this
Okay.
is a good place to stop.
Okay.